What if the life you've been chasing is actually upside down? In this episode, we explore what Jesus really meant by the blessed life. And it's not what you think. 2 kingdoms, 2 perspectives, and 1 choice that changes everything. Here on the Pastor's Potluck Podcast, our goal is to encourage you and maybe in the process, entertain you. If you're ready, let's dig in. Welcome to another episode of the Pastor's Potluck Podcast. We are continuing our conversation on the Upside Down series, which was something that you had preached 5 years ago.
Yep.
You probably started it around this time, too. To go 20 weeks. I mean, what are we, 12 weeks in the year?
Yeah, it would have...
No, we're a little bit more than that. We're about 20 weeks in right now. I was thinking we were in March.
I want to say that maybe it was the first thing we did in 2020. Let me see.
But it was a sermon series that you preached for a while and extended it through the pandemic season. Is that a way to... How would you classify that?
It started February 16th.
Oh,
so
yeah.
It started about a month before the pandemic.
Nice.
And about 3 weeks before I was named the lead pastor of the church. Yeah.
It's crazy.
Yeah.
Like whenever you look back on that time, it's like there was just like a lot of uncertainty and pandemonium, but like some crazy things happening, not only in like your life, but my life as well. Yeah. Like God was just saying, just give me another chance and I'll prove to you that ministry's not all bad.
We just did the weirdest stuff around here. And it's not that anyone else wasn't doing weird stuff. It was just like when I look back and I'm like, there was a year where I preached more to an empty room than I did to a room with people in it. It felt like.
That's the crazy thing. It was your first year as the solo lead pastor.
I was 1 week in, to leading without Michael being with me.
Yeah.
And I'm trying to navigate. Thankfully, just in the providence of God, we had 2 nurses on our elder board during that time period that were able to help me navigate. I mean, it was so weird. We were just closed down, and then I'm trying to lead our staff, but yet for weeks and weeks, West Virginia didn't have a single case of COVID, and I'm trying to figure out, well, what does that mean for us? And then I'm getting pressure from people that are more CNN and MSNBC type folks that you better shut the church down. And then all of our Fox Newsers are like, don't you dare shut that church down. I'm like, it was just a weird place to be. And I was like, I've been in lead ministry since into 2015, but like me and Michael got to do everything together. Yeah. This was like, I don't know the right answer. People on this side are telling me I'm going to kill their grandma, while people on the other side are telling me I'm not being faithful to God because we're operating in fear. And it was just like, I was like, there was no right answer.
Yeah, the crazy thing is like throughout that whole ordeal, West Virginia was one of the ones that didn't get any COVID cases until a large amount of time before the rest of the country did.
Yeah, it was into April, I think, before we even got. I mean, it was weeks into the lockdown.
Yeah. Before
West Virginia had its first case, I think. I don't know. Again,
it was a little bit longer than that.
When you led through that, everything is a blur. Yeah. Because I remember I was preaching to an empty room. At one point, one of our life groups came up and posted pictures of themselves on the front rows, so the way I had people to look at. And it started out the first couple of weeks. We would allow our worship team to come up and film worship videos. And then we got to the point in the pandemic where it was like that was being frowned upon, so we didn't want to do that anymore.
Yeah.
There was a couple times where we made music videos where people were performing their part at their house, and then Michael was going in and putting it together.
Yeah.
And we did the craziest stuff. We did a drive-through prayer event Were you here when we did that?
Yes, I was here for that. We did a drive-through cookies with Santa.
Yeah.
That Christmas, because like things started to ramp up towards the end of the year in terms of cases.
We were shut down all of December.
Yeah.
In 2020, after being open all fall.
Yeah.
My family, I'm fairly certain, was patient zero on the re-explosion at Southridge, because what happened was, and again, here we are 5 years later, and I've still never had COVID, but my son went to my mom and dad's house in late November for a sleep. Actually, he was only over there for a couple of hours.
Yeah.
A couple of days later, my dad and mom and sister all tested positive for COVID, which meant Landon was going to have to get tested for COVID, which meant that he had now been around me and Megan and Olivia. And then Megan had showed up at worship practice that Thursday night or Monday night or whenever it was, and my sister was there who had COVID but didn't know she had it yet. And so then I think 2 other worship team members ended up with COVID.
Yeah.
So we ended up with, like, my family was on lockdown because of an exposure to my parents. My sister and a couple of the other worship team members had been exposed, and then they had been around other people at the church, and it just like spread like wildfire so fast on all the potential.
Yeah.
And it was just like, well, I guess we're closed in Christmas of 2020.
Yeah.
About the time that everyone else was opening back up, we were closing down for our 3rd time.
Yeah.
Because we had shut down initially, and then we came back open in like May.
Yeah, for me to come. I think it was specifically for me to come and lead worship.
It was like 2 or 3 weeks in, and we didn't have masks when we first came back because again, I didn't know.
Yeah,
I had no clue that this was a thing.
Yeah,
because West Virginia was lagging so far behind everything else.
Yeah.
So we didn't mandate masks initially, and so we finally opened, and it was so fun to be open. But of course, we were doing 3 services.
Yeah.
We had spaced out our rows to where we couldn't have as many people.
Yeah.
We were doing everything we could to keep people safe.
We had stickers on the floor.
Yeah, one of the very first times that we were open, somebody ended up being here, and later that week tested positive for COVID.
I remember that, dude. And we were like, we're going to shut it down again.
Then everyone on our elder board was like, I think that means we have to shut it down again. So we shut down again, and then we relaunched in the fall, and we were open like August, maybe September, November.
I think it was like the last week of November that we closed it down, because I remember being at the apartment that we were at, and it was I got COVID. I didn't get tested. I knew I had COVID because I couldn't taste anything. But I remember just being in bed that whole week, and then like trying to come back up, and then it was like, no, I'm just gonna do something from my house.
The church did a golf scramble in 2020.
Yeah, I remember that
me and you almost missed.
Yeah,
because we had been exposed. We had to go to the express clinic and get our nose swabbed. And what made me so mad was that I went before you.
Yeah,
and they called you immediately. You're negative, and you headed off to the golf course.
And
I waited for an hour at this place, and I ended up just eventually calling because you called me. You're like, I'm in the clear. I'm going to go golf, and you missed like 2 holes.
Yeah.
I called, and they're like, yeah, we've had your results for like an hour. Did no one call you? I said, no one called me. They're like, yes, sir, you're negative. You're good to go. So I showed up and only got to golf like 9 holes of the church scramble. I was so mad,
dude. So the funny thing is like, at the end of 2019 into the beginning of 2020, just like whenever you are in ministry, you're a part of like ministry pages and groups on Facebook and stuff. Pastors of the Church of God, whatever the pages that you could be a part of, and that you're going to affiliate yourself with. Everybody at the beginning of that year was just like, Vision 2020. Like,
we're seeing things clearly this year.
Yeah, we're seeing. Yeah,
it's the lamest thing ever.
No, but the funny thing is like the sermon series that y'all are going through, like in the middle of this pandemic, is upside down.
Yeah,
like
it's like,
your world
the world
upside down?
Really was upside down.
And no, I appreciated that, because whenever our initial conversation, you were like, "Yeah, we're doing this sermon series called Upside Down. It's on the Sermon on the Mount." And just all this, and I was like, I can appreciate that. Like God's got a sense of humor, because Like, I'm pretty sure, like, they were listening to God more than everybody saying, man, we see the future clearly. And I think that God was just, like, furious with a lot of people because I think that they had a tendency just to see some kind of silly, number, whatever. And they're like, oh, yeah, like 2020 vision.
Perfect vision. It's like, oh, gosh.
Yeah.
This was a series that I had planned for a while I wanted to do.
Yeah.
But it was only supposed to be like 8 weeks, which is funny now that I know that it took us 20 some weeks to do it.
Yeah.
I don't know how I was going to do it. And again, I don't know what we're going to do for the potluck. I don't imagine we're going to do this for the next 20 weeks.
Why not?
We could, because it's all, because what I've always thought, here was always my thought. This will be a little inside information for, the 10 people that do listen.
A little bit more than that.
I always thought as a young preacher that like I would preach through all the stuff that I thought I was going to preach.
Yeah.
And from what I always saw people do in ministry, it was like they would just go to a new church and then they would just preach it all over again. And where I'm still at the same church, I've been preaching at the same church for 15 years almost.
Yeah.
Like I'm going back, like when I go back to a text, I'll go and read my old sermons and I'll go like, oh my gosh.
Yeah.
Like, I'll think that they're terrible, and I'll be like, I would say that so different now. So even if you did, I say that to tell you, like, if you heard the Upside Down series, or you're like, oh, I've been there, done that type thing, even as I look at this sermon, I go, I don't even, most of the time when I go look at my old sermons, my first thought is, what was I doing?
Yeah.
Because I used to think, in my mind, I'm always going, like I've felt like I was always a good preacher.
Yeah.
When I go back and read my old sermons, I'm like, oh my gosh, what is this content? Like, what is this? And I'm like cringing.
Yeah.
At it. So
I think about that like if I go back and I'm like, the first job I had as a worship pastor, because I didn't have anybody to teach me anything. I'm going, God, how did I stay in this job for 2 years?
Yeah. So even though this was only 5 years ago, like what you're going to get right now is probably going to be a much more refined and a new version of it based on, as hopefully any good preacher or leader, just continue to grow in your understanding of the Bible and the world. And so hopefully it will bring some fresh stuff to it. But when I was reading week 1 today and I was like, I feel like it's missing information. What was I doing exactly? Man, I don't know. Maybe I trusted myself more back in the day, and now I'm more meticulous.
Yeah.
Now, I don't know what it is, but I can't hardly make sense of some of my old sermons.
Yeah, I think that you'll appreciate the stuff in the way that you do your notes now, because there are some things, like I'm reading over this, and I'm not even in your head, and so I had some questions or whatever, but I've pieced it all together. But the great thing is, the kind of piggybacking on our conversation from last week, is that we got this understanding that there are two kingdoms that we are faced with in life that we have to choose to be a part of.
Yes.
And that's a kingdom of self, a kingdom of selfishness, or a kingdom that is reflective of Jesus and of God and things of heaven that we want to see here on earth. The
earthly kingdom is a kingdom that's all about you.
Yeah.
God's kingdom is a kingdom that's all about him.
Yeah.
And these are two drastically different ways of viewing the world.
Yeah.
And you can tell if someone's truly experienced rebirth into the Christian life, if their view has changed to, it's actually not about me at all. To the extent that your life is not about you is the extent that you really understood the gospel of Jesus.
Yeah. Yeah, this whole series is going to be great because there's going to be some things that we talk about that you're going to find maybe an area of your life is still in living or still a part of this kingdom of self, this kingdom of the world. And how do we begin to shift our focus to where every aspect is reflective of this kingdom of God?
Yeah, because in what I say early on in the sermon, and this is what I'll say to the people listening today, is that wherever our feet are planted, everything else like if my feet are firmly planted in the earthly kingdom, the kingdom of self, then the ways of God will look upside down to me.
Yeah.
If my feet are planted firmly in God's kingdom and seeing the world the way that God sees them, the kingdoms of the earth will seem upside down to me. So the way that people live life right now in the earthly kingdom will seem totally opposite to me. So like in the earthly kingdom where they're chasing money and fame and power, in God's kingdom it's like we're chasing being a servant, we're chasing the lowly position. We're not chasing fame and fortune. We're chasing a life of faithfulness that points everyone to God. It's completely different. Like at the end of the day, in God's kingdom, the most famous people in God's kingdom are only famous to the extent that they are making God famous.
Yes.
And in the kingdoms of the earth, people are wanting to be famous the way they're the recipient of whatever that is. So, I mean, wherever your feet are planted, the other kingdom will look so out. This is why people look at Christians and look at the church and they go, you guys feel so backwards. Like it feels so out of date. It feels so odd or weird, the things that you think and the things that you say.
Yeah.
This is why. Like we are living in a world, in a worldview that's totally opposite to the world that they are experiencing, which is why Christians seem so off to the rest of the world. This is why the New Testament says that we were called to be a peculiar people. Like we're not supposed to look like everybody else around us. And that's really what the Sermon on the Mount is. It's not really a check box of do this, do this, do this, don't do this, don't do this. It's really more like this is God's vision of how things ought to be.
Yes.
And this is what we are striving for. This is what, if this is the way that the world actually operated, that it would lead to human flourishing. It would lead to the good for many people and the glory for God. And so, again, I think some people look at the Sermon on the Mount and think, oh, that's Jesus' morality. And on some on some real basic level, sure, there's a moral component to it. But this is Jesus' vision for the world. This is how life was meant to always have been lived, up to these standards. And I before we even get into one of the things I want to like set people's minds at ease as we go through this, it will become painfully obvious to anyone that has a humble heart that we are woefully inadequate to live this out. And that's the whole point. This is not this is what you do to be saved whatsoever. It's this is what it looks like to live in God's kingdom. And you are not always going to measure up, which is why you need God. Like this is not a way that you can live apart from God. No one in the world apart from God is living out the Sermon on the Mount. What it does is it shows us the ideal and says this is what we're after, and this is why you need Jesus, because you can't do this. And I can't do this.
I mean, I think even faced with the adversity, you saw it in Jesus's own words whenever he was in the Garden of Gethsemane. He's like, God, if this thing, like I'm a part of what you want to do, but if you can give me the strength to as I face what's coming, like I need you. Like Jesus understood what it was like to live on this earth, and I think that's one of the great things about living this kingdom life. Is you get this idea of what life can be like in the future. This is not just something that is just setting us up for what eternity looks like, because there's been a lot of conversation that's been, and you've seen it. Okay, what happens whenever we die? What happens whenever Jesus comes back to the earth? You know, like whenever he is coming again. Like there's been a lot of conversation and speculation of what happens and the interpretation of the scripture. And Jesus is like, no. There's something greater than that, because like, yes, there is something that's amazing that's going to happen whenever your life ends here on this earth. But I want to let you know, like right now, that there is life that can be had here on earth.
Yes.
Not just like what we're not looking for the future. Like there is something right now in the present that can be amazing.
Yeah, this is what we talked about at Easter here this year. It's like what the church has to offer and what Jesus and the scriptures have to offer is not simply something for your future.
Yeah.
And I remember talking to people where they go, this is the first time I've ever heard this, that God actually has something for me right now.
Yeah.
That God wants to improve my life and bless my life right now. I'm not sitting here just suffering until heaven, but like God has something right now. And I go, and again, I remember my own misunderstandings. Growing up, where I thought the same thing. I thought everything that God has to offer me is all the way in the future.
Yeah.
I did not realize that when I come to see the world the way He sees it and live in His kingdom the way that He calls me to live, how much more peace there is now. I'm not waiting for that.
Yeah. It's funny sometimes, like these things, like I feel like you've done a pretty good job of hammering home these theological ideas and truths, and there's still people that are like, bro, I never got it. You're like, where have you been?
Yeah.
But I mean, that's just part of the reality of ministry. But and just being consistent, because eventually you pray that it's gonna take root. I always crack up whenever you're like, somebody said that, you're like,
well, I was even talking, I talked to someone one time that they said until they listened to me teach, they've been at church for years and years and years, and no one ever told them that God had something for them right now.
Yeah.
Like it never occurred to them that living God's way actually improves your life right now.
Yeah.
And again, that's not why we do it. Like we're not just being obedient the way we can get something out of it. We're being obedient because we actually believe that the life that Jesus is going to describe in the Sermon on the Mount and just the overall life and vision for the world that you see in the scriptures actually leads to just intellectually.
Yeah.
It's the best way to live.
Yeah. The goodness of God is a byproduct of your obedience.
Yeah,
it's not. You're like you said. It's not transactional.
Yeah.
It's just I'm in the room that has lights on, and the electricity is making it all to where I could see things.
Yeah. Well, we have to come to understand, like everyone, like for most of the world, people are afraid of hell. This whole idea of hell,
for sure.
But they don't realize, and again, so they go like, yeah, but that's still really far in the future. But they don't realize how not living God's way right now brings hell right now.
Yes.
And like there is such thing as not just eternally perishing in hell, which is definitely a thing. There's also a thing of when you choose to be selfish and do things contrary to the way that God calls us to, you can live in hell right now.
Yes.
Ask anyone who has not done things God's way. Mm-hmm. It's not that He can't bring blessing to your life if you decide to not do stuff His way. It's not that there's not ways to like, oh, your life is ruined. I'm just saying, ask people that have been there, done that, decided to take matters into their own hand if they have not experienced a living hell right now.
Yeah.
And they have. Because, yes, the eternal consequence of not repenting of your sin is hell.
Yeah.
The immediate consequence is also experiencing hell right now.
Yeah.
And I'm telling you, I know we know people. Everyone listening here knows people that they go, well, I got caught up in doing stuff my way, and now I lost my wife. Now I lost my husband. Now I lost my kids. Now I lost my health. Now I lost my job. And in so many different ways, I would describe my life as a living hell.
For sure.
And that's it's 100% true that God has something for you right now that is so good.
Yeah.
And if you choose to reject that, don't be shocked when you get the opposite of that right now.
Yeah.
Because if you're thinking, well, I'll just do whatever I want for 70 years and then I'll pay the penalty for my sin in eternity. No. You will begin to reap right now whatever it is that you are sowing. So if you choose sin, if you choose this path of selfishness, you will begin to reap that now, not in the future. So it's the reverse of God doesn't just have heaven waiting for you at the end or bliss or new heavens and new earth and blessing and peace. He has that available for you now.
Yeah.
The opposite is true also. It's not just hell waiting at the end of disobedience. You can be stuck in hell right now, and I know plenty of people that are because of their disobedience.
Yeah.
And so just knowing that's if you're sitting here thinking all of this has to do with the future, because I've been there. I made myself live in hell for a while.
Yeah.
Because of my own choices, the things that I've gone through, and so as you look at the Sermon on the Mount, don't see this is the way to heaven.
Yeah.
This is heaven's way. Like say it like that. This is not the way to heaven. This is heaven's way. This is when you know we're talking about on Sundays prayer. We're supposed to pray, "Your kingdom come, your will be done." The Sermon on the Mount is what it looks like when that happens.
Yeah. One of the things that you have here, and I loved it, it takes a great deal of humility to accept the gospel.
Yeah.
It's such a profound statement because you begin to shift the way that you think whenever it comes to things of the kingdom of God. You realize and come to the realization that you are in desperate need of help. Yeah. And that Jesus is the one that's going to give you that help, and that is a very humbling thing to give up all of the control over your life, because we've all done it. Like you said, we've all gone our ways. We've all lived that lifestyle that was just us focused. But whenever we finally get to that point to where we say, "Man, I've had enough. Like I cannot do this on my own." Like I need someone else to take Jesus take the wheel.
Yeah. Well, that comment happened because it was my comments on verse 3. Like, so the Sermon on the Mount all begins with the Beatitudes, which are these sayings about about who God's going to bless.
Yeah.
See, the world has a group of people that we would say this is who, as far as the world is considered, are blessed.
Yeah.
We think of the rich, we think of the powerful, we think of the famous, we think of those that have everything that they need.
Yeah.
We think of those that are at the top of the social ladder, those that are the ones making decisions, that those are the blessed people according to the kingdoms of the earth. Jesus, in his teaching of the Beatitudes, comes and goes, no. If you want to know who God really blesses, this is who it is. And he says, God blesses those who are poor and realize their need for him, for the kingdom of heaven is theirs. And that's where I was saying it takes a lot of humility to receive the gospel, because Jesus is saying it's actually people that are spiritually impoverished and know that they don't have anything to offer to God that are actually blessed in life. Because most people that are well-to-do in life, that they are the ones that the world says are blessed.
Yeah.
They'll never realize their need for the gospel. They will never be humble enough to receive it whatsoever. And so as I read these, like I'll just read through all the Beatitudes. These are counter to everything the world says.
Yes.
Right? He says, God blesses those who are poor and realize their need for him. No, the world says, you don't need anybody. You're good just how you are.
Yeah.
That's who's blessed in the world, and God goes, no, not in my kingdom.
Yeah.
My kingdom, the blessed people will be the ones that are dependent upon me. The next people, he says, God blesses those who mourn. See, when in the earthly kingdom, we look and we go, people that are happy, people that are experiencing success, people that don't have to go through suffering. Those are the people that maybe God is blessing. And Jesus goes, no. In my kingdom, those who mourn. And when he's talking about mourning, he's not just talking about going through a tough time. He's saying people that mourn their own sin. So recognize their own sin, realize that they are causing their own problems for the most part.
Yeah.
And then also recognizing that they're mourning because there's so much brokenness. They look around the world and they don't act like everything is as it should be.
Yeah.
He says it's those people that have a broken heart that are actually blessed in my kingdom. That's so different. He says, God blesses those who are humble, for they'll inherit the whole earth. Again, I'm not trying to turn what shouldn't necessarily be a hot, controversial podcast into it, but we can't overlook the fact that in our culture right now, we have a whole month dedicated to the opposite of humility and pride.
Yeah.
Pride everywhere we turn is, and I'm not just talking about the LGBT type of pride. I'm just saying in our culture right now, the proud seem to be the people that are quote unquote blessed. Yeah. And Jesus comes along and goes, no. In my kingdom, it won't be people that are full of themselves and are proud of themselves and laugh in the face of God. It will be the people that are truly humble and understand that they have a need for God that will be the ones who will be blessed in my kingdom. Totally different. Yeah. The next one, he says, God blesses those who hunger and thirst for justice. What runs rampant in the kingdoms of man? Injustice. Yeah. Injustice everywhere we look. And it's amazing to me that we do live in a culture now that is constantly talking about injustice. Yeah. But their vision for how to go about making the world more just removes and segregates off the one hope that we have for justice in the world, which is the kingdom of God to come as it was meant to be. So we do live in the Western world where people are kind of waking up to the fact that there is a lot of injustice going on, but now we have two different visions for how to go about making the world a more just
it often place. Seems like injustice is met with more injustice, but trying to be painted as just.
It is. It's because the world is so backwards in this way that we just functionally do not understand what justice really looks like. Mm-hmm. And because so many people, especially like if I'm talking, and I am, because everyone that listens to this is probably connected to our church, if I'm talking to Western American people, the danger that most people have when it comes to topics of justice are that they are way better Democrats and Republicans than they are Christians. Yeah. And so their version of justice is first and foremost influenced by their political affiliations rather than the Word of God. Yeah. And that's why the visions that everyone has to fight against injustice never bring about more justice in the world, because we're leaving out the one critical component, and that's God. The next one, he says, God blesses those who are merciful, for they'll be shown mercy. In the earthly kingdom, if you show mercy to people, which means that you're not giving them what they deserve, that makes you a chump. Yeah. That means people are going to try to get over on you. It's the powerful. It's the ones that demand mercy from others, like that demand and put expectations. That's who it looks like is really blessed in the earthly kingdom. And Jesus comes along and he goes, no. People that show mercy, people that actually don't return evil for evil, people that actually are kind, people that aren't trying to take advantage of others. It's people that actually show mercy are who's really blessed. He says, God blesses those whose hearts are pure. Yeah. In the earthly kingdom, purity is no longer a culture whatsoever. Purity is not. We live in a culture in the earthly kingdom now where what God calls evil, people have begun to call good. Yeah. Purity is not a thing in the earthly kingdom anymore whatsoever. Yeah. And Jesus says, God blesses those whose hearts are pure. They're not defiled by evil, not filled up with sin. It's opposite. It says God blesses those who work for peace. What do we see all over the world? A complete lack of peace. Oh yeah. And everyone, what's funny? This is probably NT Wright rubbing off on me, and I'm not. I think that he's probably like an extreme pacifist for my liking, to be honest. Yeah. But I do know I agree on some level that he says every time that someone's talking about peace around the world, they try to bring about peace by dropping bombs on other countries. Yeah. And he goes, how can peace be brought about by a lack of peace? It's that vision for a world that will fight its way into peace just doesn't seem consistent with the gospel of Jesus whatsoever. Yeah. That perhaps there's a stronger force than bombs and bullets for peace in the world. Perhaps we should try a different way. And again, he may be too much of a pacifist for my liking. But I when I think about that thought that we're supposed to be bringing peace, and yet most peace we try to accomplish it through conflict. and not just like a, hey, let's try to resolve this thing, but like people are losing their lives and we're devastating economies and all sorts of things. And we go, yeah, that's the way to peace. I'm like, I don't know, is that the way to peace or is that the way to submission? Because those are not the same thing whatsoever. And so everywhere we look, there's conflict. You know, it's conflict in our neighborhoods, conflict in our churches, conflict in our government, conflict among nations. And that's how the earthly kingdom just thrives off of conflict. And Jesus says, no, those who work for peace, those people will be blessed. He says God blesses those who are persecuted for doing right. Like out in the world, if you're doing what's wrong, there's a lot of people that will pat you on the back for it. They'll congratulate you for it. And God goes, no, in my kingdom, Jesus says, in my kingdom, if you're being faithful to me and people persecute you, call you names, treat you with contempt, call you like whatever it is, he goes, that actually makes you, like, to live in a way that brings about the persecution from the worldly kingdom actually makes you blessed. It's totally upside down. He says God blesses people that mock you and persecute you and lie about you and say all sorts of evil things against you because you're my followers. Jesus says, be happy about it. How many people in the earthly kingdom, when people mock them and lie about them and say evil things about them, rejoice in that? No. They fight against it. I'll take you to court for that. I'll beat your brains in for that. I'll shoot you for that. I'll stop you some way whatsoever. I'll cancel you for that. But in God's kingdom, he goes, no. When they come against you, rejoice because it means that you're doing the right stuff. And so I didn't just stick to week one of upside down because really all of this just flows together. When we're thinking about the people that are blessed, it's different than who the world says is blessed. Because my guess is if you ask the average 12-year-old, you go, hey, who's blessed? They would whoever they watch on YouTube. Because those people have a big audience. They're famous. They have money. They have mansions. They have, they have the girls or, whatever it is. They have that ideal life. And that's the vision that has been sold to so many people. They go, this is what being blessed really looks like. And Jesus is standing here going, no, listen, in my kingdom it looks drastically different. Sometimes it looks like being called to being a missionary and going to a third world country and living in a one-room shack, giving your life to a people that have never heard the name of Jesus. And those people, though they don't have two pennies to rub together, are actually the blessed ones because they are right in the middle of where God wants them to be, and their feet are planted firmly in his kingdom. Those people may be way further blessed than your social media influencers that are wearing Gucci and living in $5 million mansions. They look blessed, but according to Jesus, that's not really the blessed life. And so this whole view of who's really blessed and who's really in and who's really out is flipped, right? When you think of the earthly kingdom, it's this person's in, this person's in, this person's in, this person's in. They're on the A list. That A list is completely flipped upside down in God's kingdom.
With all the information that we've talked about today, what is a way that someone can apply this information to their life as a practical next step to where they begin to live out this kingdom life and not this earthly kingdom life?
Well, you could choose any of those Beatitudes and create an action step from them. And so I would say an overarching thing that I would just encourage you, if you're watching this, maybe you spend some time writing who you think are the blessed people in the world today. See what sort of list you come up with. You go like, who looks blessed in your world? And see if the people, like, just do this as a way of testing your own perception of the world. Like, do you look at people that are in the earthly kingdom as blessed, or the people in God's kingdom that are blessed? Like people in God's kingdom that don't have much material wealth and resources, people in God's kingdom that are persecuted and are on the front lines, possibly losing their lives. Who looks blessed to you? I would say, and again, I come away from a lot of times people ask me to give me an application step, and I go, just do an audit, man. Just take what I just talked about and do an audit. what does success look like to you? Does success only look like money in the bank, or does success look like fulfillment because I'm in the center of God's will?
Yeah.
I can't think of anything better that you can do, because until you have the information of how it is that you define who are the blessed people, you'll have a hard time being able to see which kingdom your feet are rooted in.
That's good stuff.
Yeah.
You ready for a mystery meat?
Yeah. Yep. I think I just knocked out like 3 weeks of Upside Down also. So
I was trying to follow along. It's like, this ain't.
Well, once I started reading, so this is what happened in the Upside Down series. I was like, these are all supposed to be done together.
Yeah.
It's supposed to be presented how I just, again, and this is another thing where I go 5 years ago, I probably didn't know that.
Yeah.
And I couldn't articulate it in that way. But the more I'm getting comfortable with what God's teaching me, like I get it now. That it's more boiled down to who the world says is blessed versus who God says is blessed.
Yeah.
Rather than these being specific attributes that we need to use like a checkbox.
Mm-hmm.
It's really just meant to, you might look at, a kid and go, in God's kingdom, that kid's blessed.
Yeah.
Compared to a wealthy millionaire who hates their life, and their family left them because they focused on their job too much, but they look blessed, but they're not experiencing blessing.
Yeah,
it's taken a while for me to understand that.
Yeah, I was watching this, or I was on X, the social media used to be Twitter.
I'm never going to stop calling it Twitter.
Yeah, I'm just calling it.
I don't like saying X because I feel like people look at you like, you were on what? I'm like, Twitter. So
Single X.
Yeah. I'm just saying Twitter from here on out.
Yeah.
I don't care what Elon Musk says.
Yeah.
He can buy everything, and I'm going to call it by its original name. I am averse to change in that way.
So the guy who created Minecraft, the very popular video game, back in 2016, I think it was, just got on Twitter one day and just said, who wants to buy my share of Minecraft? And then that started the conversation with him and Microsoft. And so he ended up selling his shares of Minecraft to Microsoft for $2.5 billion with a B.
Yeah. Tons
of money. And a lot of people were like, man, that's pretty awesome. Like, he created this thing. He built it up to a certain point, had it for 10 years or whatever and sold it for $2.5 billion. Like, who wouldn't invest that amount of time to create something and then settle it? And a lot of people, you would probably say, man, that guy's blessed. That guy is so blessed. But one of the interesting things that happened was, like, the dude would, like, show pictures of him, like, all over the world.
Mm-hmm.
Like in crazy places, like in Italy and Japan and all these other things, and he was always by himself.
Yeah.
And you can tell that his life lacked purpose.
Yeah.
Because he gave up on the thing that he created and that was giving him life.
Yeah.
And so I guarantee you, if you ask him, if you pin him down today, you said, hey, would you sell to Microsoft right now? He'd probably tell you, without a doubt, like, I would not do it. Or I would still sell my shares, but I would have some kind of say-so. Because, like, he lost all of his purpose. Yeah. He lost all of his drive because of what he had devoted so much of his life to, and then gave it up for something of this world.
Yeah, I have this list of quotes that I use in sermons. If I would have known I was going to get into this, I would have had them handy. So I'll try to paraphrase them. But, like, I remember... You'll probably be able to help me too. There's been a lot of famous people on record that are trying to tell you, like, when you look at our lives, I know that you glamorize it. Yeah. And you think that this is the good life, that this is the blessed life.
Yeah.
And they'll flat out, like Jim Carrey's one of them. Jim Carrey has a great quote where he says that I think everyone should be get famous and wealthy so that way we can all come to realize it doesn't, it's not the answer.
Yeah, like Ricky Gervais said it in his last Screen Actors Guild monologue. Yeah. He just says, nobody cares about what we have to say. No. Like, we are in no position to try to educate other people just because we're famous and we're rich. Oh,
Chester Bennington had an unbelievable quote before he died. Like, he ended up dying by suicide.
Yeah.
And it was a lot like that. He said, people think that you get this card that makes your life better whenever you're wealthy and successful and famous. And he's like, you're crazy. Like another side of that I've heard, I've used this quote, I think it was by Drake, the rapper, and he says, I sleep with a different woman every night.
Yeah.
Which for most men go like, man, that's the dream. And he goes, and right after we're finished for about 15 seconds, I have this moment where it feels like of clarity, and he goes, and then right afterwards I realize it didn't work.
Yeah.
Like whatever it is that he's looking for in all these women, he finds out shortly after they're finished.
Yeah.
No, it still didn't work. Like, I thought this was what it looked like to be blessed, to have all the money, all the women, all the fame. And he goes, it's not working. Madonna has a quote like this. She goes, like, I spend my whole life trying to become a somebody. And that's why she even says this is why she goes and does the stuff that she does, which, she's some wild stuff. She says it's all because my whole life I've been trying to be a somebody, not realizing, like, none of that matters.
Yeah.
And like if you just saw the epidemic of quote unquote blessed people that are committing suicide, and are unhappy and are going through divorce after divorce after divorce, and whose kids won't talk to them, you would see quickly that the vision of success and blessedness that the earthly kingdom gives cannot stand up to the vision of blessing that the kingdom of God offers.
Yeah. Ooh, good stuff. Our mystery meat question. This is actually an interesting one, and it kind of goes along with like your food.
I was hoping it was going to be about mashed potatoes.
No. Okay. What's the strangest food you've ever eaten that turned out to be surprisingly good? Because we've talked a lot about the stuff that you dislike. What is something that you've eaten that you kind of went out on a limb and you're like, oh man, this turned out to be like amazing. Like, what? I've been missing this the whole time.
Oh gosh. I don't try stuff for this very reason. Like, I'm not adventurous to find out the answer to that question.
Yeah. I am. I've eaten some pretty weird stuff that I actually enjoy now. Most people in West Virginia, there's some that are on board with it, but I'd say about 90% of the people that I've come across and talked to about this, they don't understand the infatuation with sushi.
Yeah, Megan loves it, but I'm fully out on that.
Yeah. Or like a lot of, like, I eat a lot of crazy food from different cultures of the world. So whenever I lived in Texas, it was a lot more, actually it was I haven't been able to find it here, but there's different plates of food because we're close to the border of Mexico, and so they are of the mindset of we're going to use everything from an animal and make sure that it gets all eaten. Yeah. That way its life wasn't given up in vain as a respect to the animal. And so they have this dish. It's called barbacoa, and what they do is they take the whole head of the cow, and then like all of like the cheek meat and the muscles that are like all over here, like they just put it in like this giant pit, like in a pot, and then dump coals on it and like let it cook for like 24 hours. It's like brisket almost, like super soft, super flavorful. But most people they would go, dude, like you're eating like the cheeks of a cow, like that's weird.
Yeah. I think I've actually tried barbacoa because I think I don't know if it's made the same way when you get it at Chipotle, because that's not really.
I think that's a brisket cut, like because you can either get it like the shoulder, the brisket is the shoulder of the cow, or like traditional barbacoa is like the face.
I think I tried the barbacoa breakfast taco though when I came down to San Antonio with you. I don't know, because again, I'm not adventurous, so I won't go out on a ledge. Like, I just won't do it.
Yeah.
So I'm having a hard time once again coming up with an answer to the mystery meat because I'm not adventurous in that way. I think now I eat certain things that people are always shocked. Like, I love salt and vinegar chips.
Yeah.
For like a picky person, people are like, really? You like salt? And like pickles, I love pickles.
Yeah.
I know not picky people that hate pickles.
Yeah.
I'm fully in on like
dill pickles though.
Yeah. Only dill pickles. I won't eat the other ones.
No, I don't want no bread and butter. I don't want sweet pickles. I want something salty, a little bit sour.
So people think it's weird that I like mayonnaise and pickles.
Yeah. Salt
and vinegar chips is one that people say pretty often. They're like, really? You like that? I'm like, yeah, I do.
Yeah.
So there's stuff like that. I can't think of anything. Again, when I go on these mission trips or I'm traveling somewhere and they're offering us, I'll be honest, I've got my ways that make these people think I'm eating this food, but I have a bad gag reflex, and I'm always having the discussion with myself when I'm sitting at someone else's table. Is it more disrespectful for me to just move this food around a little bit and not eat it, or is it more disrespectful for me to try to shove this in my mouth
and throw up
on their dinner table? Because that's all, and I'm not joking. Just listen, my gag reflex is so bad, especially the older I get. I'm brushing my teeth.
You can't even brush your teeth.
I can't. Megan's getting so mad at me right now because it's happening every morning. I'm trying, because you try to brush the nastiness off of your tongue.
Yeah.
If I go more than like half an inch on my tongue, I'm literally acting a fool in our bathroom in the morning, and she's getting furious because it grosses her out. And I don't even know why I'm like this. Like, I get choked on taking little tiny pills.
You can't take like Advil or something like that?
No, I can, but like there will be times because of my gag reflex that if it doesn't get all the way down the pipe, I will literally sit there and cough and gag and hack into the sink.
Cat cough. That's what you were trying to say.
It will be awful. Yeah. And so I don't get real. I remember I tried a Philadelphia roll.
Oh,
One of the first times I ever went out with Megan's family. It was for her sister Jenna's birthday. We were at the Hibachi restaurant up here in Southridge.
Yeah.
Here's the problem with a Philadelphia roll. You know what that is?
It's got a whole bunch of different like textures in it.
It's got fish,
cucumber,
it's got rice, it's
cream
got cream cheese.
Yeah.
I don't like any of that. There was not one thing, especially cream cheese. I hate cream cheese.
Yeah.
So I was like, well, I'm trying to be adventurous with my new family and all of this stuff. Like, this is one of the first nice dinners. I got invited to a birthday dinner. So I'm like, yeah, I'll try it. And so I said, just give me like a little piece of it. And that's how little I knew about sushi at the time.
I thought you were just burping just now, but I thought you were gagging just thinking about it. I was like, hold up.
So
wait a minute.
Megan's like, no, you have to eat the whole thing. And I was like, I have to, what? She's like, yeah, that's how sushi's made. You take a whole bite. And I remember, like, literally, I put it in my mouth, and I had this moment of, if I don't make it to the bathroom soon to spit this out, this guy is out here cooking our food.
Yeah.
I'm going to spew all over this grill that this guy is working so hard to make our food.
Yeah.
So I had to get up and excuse myself from that.
Yeah,
that's why
you don't want to ruin the onion volcano.
No, that's why I can't afford to get real adventurous because, again, if I taste something or just it has a weird feel to it or anything, I'm a puke candidate at any time, and I don't know, or at least like I'm going to gross you out by like dry heaving all over your house.
Yeah.
So I can't think of anything. I'll just go with salt and vinegar chips because people are always so blown away that I like that.
Yeah. Do you like pickle chips? You ever had those?
Yep, love them. Jalapeno chips, I'm down with that.
Yeah. I want to try some of like those crazy flavors that they have in like Japan. Have you seen those?
Yeah, we brought one of those bags home to our kids because they sell them down in Epcot.
Yeah.
It's either China or Japan.
What flavor
pavilion.
did you get?
I cannot remember, but they were. We all ate like one. It wasn't good.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. So it was. Yeah. I don't know. I can't be real adventurous, or else I will have problems. and I don't ever want my own weirdness to inconvenience somebody else. And so I just don't go out on a limb.
I just want to experience it. I just want to laugh with you because I know that you find it funny.
They're getting ready to go to Ecuador on our third trip down there.
Yeah.
But when we went the first time, they took us to this real nice Ecuadorian restaurant. And I'm talking, I bet as far as Ecuadorian restaurants go, it's probably a 4 or 5 star. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like, it would have been something like we would have had this in downtown Charleston. It would be your type of place to go on a Saturday night on a date. Like, they took us to a nice restaurant. And the people from the Kids Around the World were saying, hey, people always like to get the raw... what is squid or whatever?
Oh, yeah.
They got the little suction cups on it, or octopus, or is that the same thing? I don't know. So they ordered like 2 of those to the table, and oh, you want to try that? You want to? I'm like, dude, I will ruin this restaurant right now. But everyone else is like sitting around there just eating like not calamari, not deep fried. Like I saw the tentacles on this thing.
Yeah,
and I'm like, no, I'm out on that. Like, I can't afford. They took me downstairs to get a hamburger afterwards because I wouldn't eat anything at this restaurant.
Yeah.
I could barely choke the hamburger down. So I'm definitely not eating something with suction cups on its legs. Like, I just can't afford to be adventurous anywhere because I don't want to embarrass somebody or myself. That being said, that Ecuador trip, if they're doing a lot of cool work down there, and I was talking to Cheryl earlier, they're doing a little bit of fundraising to help some electrical needs, some painting needs, and installing water filters. Yeah. So if you are interested in helping put water filters in people's homes that need clean water, or helping with electricity issues and things like that, you could financially support $10, $20, $30, $40, $50, $1,000.
I think it was like $30 per house gets a brand new water filtration system.
If you would want to help with that, we'll put the link in the comments or something.
Yep, I could do that.
So you can just go out and you can give. If you give $30, a family's going to get a water filter. It would greatly help them. I think they need about $1,500 or so. So I mean, there's probably someone watching that could literally take care of the whole thing
for sure.
And we'll make sure that you have a link. I'm sure you can find it on src.life. I think that you just designated to Ecuador, as well. But while I'm talking about Ecuador, I just kind of felt impressed to let you know you could help with that, even if this isn't your church, and even if you're not a Christian, but you're like, I'll help somebody get some fresh water into their home. For sure. You can do that.
Awesome. I enjoyed it. I'm looking forward to the rest of this conversation. We hope that y'all are too. Y'all have a wonderful weekend. We'll see you next Friday. Thank you so much for listening in with us today. We really appreciate it. If you haven't done so already, go ahead and hit that subscribe button. You can also follow us on social media, on Facebook, Instagram. And you can also watch the video version of this on YouTube as well. All you have to do is search up the Pastor's Potluck Podcast. From all of us here, we want to say thank you, and we'll see you next week.